Hi everyone, my name is Megan O'Rourke and I'm the Associate Director for Regional Programs for the Office of Alumni Relations at USD. I'm so excited and proud to welcome you to the University of San Diego Alumni Association and the Chicago Torero Club event, Fall Harvest Cooking Class with Emily Knapp, Class of 2015. Before we begin today's session, I'd like to let you all know and thank you so much for coming. We hope you all are doing well and we're so excited to see you. So because there's so much going on in the world, one of the things that we really wanted to do, especially the Chicago Torero Club, was to do something that was fun, exciting, and maybe something you haven't done before. So Emily lives in Chicago and she offered to do this event for us. So thank you, Emily. And she's gonna go ahead and lead us through a really fun fall harvest cooking class. So as I mentioned, feel free to turn on your camera to be more interactive. Feel free to unmute yourself when you have a question. Or you can go ahead and put them in the chat. But I need to let everyone know that I am also going to be cooking along, so bear with me when it comes to technicality and things like that. So again, feel free to put any questions in the chat. Emily will be answering them throughout the event, and I will also be helping facilitate that. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Emily Knapp.
Hello, hello. How are you guys? My name's Emily. If you guys know me from school, hi, thank you for coming. But yeah, this is gonna be a very fun class. I was thinking about what I wanted to cook tonight since anything was on the table. And I wanted to do recipes that were super fall forward, very easy to do, things that sound impressive, but you can definitely make with your family at any time, or for yourself, and do whatever you gotta do. But yeah, so it's gonna be a pretty quick class. I have to say, I have two screens going on, so fingers crossed my phone doesn't die on me. If so, we'll move over to my computer. But it's gonna be a good class, and if you guys have questions, 100%, like Megan said, feel free to drop them in. I'm gonna be trying to do 10 things at once and figure it out. But I love to teach cooking classes, and my biggest thing is answering what you want to know about food, how you want to do it. So 100% drop them in as you go. The next thing, I guess what's important to know if you're doing the recipes with me right now, I might be moving faster than you're used to at home. So feel free to yell at me and tell me to slow down. I feel like Megan will be the, be the voice on that one as she's also doing the recipes. And then also we will be starting from dessert to the salad. That way everything gets done in that 1.5 to 2 hour time period. So in order for that to happen, hopefully you guys mise en place before, which is just weighing out all your ingredients beforehand. I promise this is home cook 101. If you do this, it's amazing. You'll save so much time. No more nerves when you're cooking because you have everything prepped out in front of you. So starting with our squash, which you guys should have roasted, hopefully. If not, no worries, you can catch up in the middle. But I'm straining my squash here so that the water, the liquid comes out and we don't have a gummy gnocchi. Sometimes when you're making gnocchi with fresh potatoes or squash, it can get gummy because the moisture from the vegetable weighs down the actual gnocchi. So go ahead and strain it. Not that much water will come out of it. You'll be like, Emily, you're crazy, but I'm telling you, it makes a difference. So do that, set it aside, and we will get started on our rosemary chocolate chip cookies. I'm gonna see if there's questions yet. All right, cool. Ooh, I just turned myself on my computer. Okay, so first things first is our cookies. So I have room temperature butter here, and this is so key for a good chocolate chip cookie. This is a very classic recipe, but in order to make it that next better thing, you need room temperature butter. And we're gonna put this straight into our mixer. And then this is gonna go in with our sugar. And I'm gonna let that cream. And what that means is that the butter is going inside of the sugar and really breaking down the sugar into smaller crystals. And I'm going to cream it for way longer than you normally would in a recipe. And that's because it makes such a better cookie. So I'm gonna cream this for about 5 to 10 minutes. I would say 5 is your minimum, and I prefer 10, so we'll keep it up there. I really want that butter to change colors. So I want it to be like nice and fluffy, almost like a whipped cream kind of texture, or like cream cheese actually. And that's gonna give you like a nice texture in your cookie. And then while that is whipping in the back, I am gonna get the rest of my ingredients figured out. So I have my flour, sugar, flour, salt, and baking soda all in this bowl. I'm gonna whisk it so it's really nice and combined. Set that aside. And then my chocolate, which is like always the winner. And my rosemary, which I need to find. But, oh, it's here. I got it, don't worry. Okay, so our rosemary here, I'm gonna mince it, and I wanted to show you guys how to mince really quickly. It's not just a rough chop, because I do not want like big pieces of rosemary in my chocolate chip cookie. I don't know about you, but that's just like not good eating. So I'm gonna take my rosemary, which I've already taken off of the stem. You do need to pick rosemary leaves because it's on like that really woody stem. So I'm gonna pick it off, and I'm going to pile it up on my cutting board, which hopefully you guys can see well enough. And then I'm gonna gather it, and I'm gonna do like a little chef claw, I call it, and go around my product that I'm cutting and mince right over that rosemary. And then I'm gonna push it all back into a little pile, and I'm gonna create a lever with my knife and go right back over it. And you're just gonna do this until it gets as small as possible. Again, like this is really just a texture thing. So if you're cool with getting a big rosemary leaf, you do you, but I feel like you're gonna really enjoy the cookie a lot more if you get this nice and small. All right, so we're looking for like about, I don't even know if that's helpful, but very small. All right, let's see, any questions? You guys, there's so many people. I'm so impressed you guys are actually doing this. It's crazy. And also, I'm also looking at your guys' cameras too. So if you want help with something, put like a wave or whatever you can do on Zoom and show it to the camera, and I'll try to take a look at it. And I'll show you this butter right now is, it's super creamy, but not there. So we want to take this further than this, which I know is going to seem crazy, but I promise you it's worth it. I'm just going to scrape down my bowl so that it can continue to mix better. And then the other thing we're going to do is go ahead and crack our egg so it's ready to go. And I always crack an egg on a flat surface. A lot of people will crack it on the side of your bowl, but what that's actually going to do is throw the shell directly inside your egg, and you're really always going to get shell in your food. And if you don't, you're magic. But if you do it on a flat surface, it's going to be 100% better. So I'm going to smash it really hard on a flat surface, crack it right into my bowl so that I'm ready to go, and no shell. If you do get a shell, you can always use the extra shell at the other half as kind of a magnet and get the shell out of the egg. But if you do it on a flat surface, you should rarely ever get a shell in the egg. All right, no questions. You guys are crazy. All right, so now my sugar and butter is nice and whipped. It reminds me of like, you know, back in the day, you used to get like cinnamon at Philadelphia whipped cream cheese. That's what it reminds me of, which is the most random. But, and then put that on the bowl, and I'm gonna throw that egg right in. And you can make this without a stand mixer. You can whisk by hand. If you're gonna do that, I would say soften your butter a little bit further so it's easier. And you can totally use like a hand whisk as well. Everything works. I'm gonna throw my rosemary right into my flour mix so that it's there and I don't forget it. Okay, where am I cooking? I am cooking in Chicago. This is not my house. I am at my office. I do recipe development for a meal delivery company called Tavala. So I have like a wall of ovens next to me, all my little Tavala ovens. But this is where I am 9 to 5. And today is just a special day where I'm here. And pairing rosemary and chocolate. Hi, Laura. So I'm a huge fan of savory and sweet desserts, and I love chocolate. I do anything for chocolate. So rosemary is like a pretty natural pairing. It's floral, but not overpowering, and it pairs really nicely with dark chocolate. And honestly, there's not a ton of it in this cookie recipe. It's more of like a hint. So it brings out the chocolate flavor, which is kind of surprising, but it's super fun. You can totally make this recipe without rosemary. If you're like, Emily, you're insane, I'm not putting rosemary in my cookie. 100% take it out, no problem at all. You're just gonna make a very good traditional chocolate chip cookie. All right.
Emily, question for you.
Yeah.
Someone wrote in asking about the rosemary and different alternatives for the cookies. Sorry if you already mentioned that, but what are some other alternatives that would be fun?
So if you're going like herbal and like fall forward, I love like thyme is really nice. It's a little lemony with the chocolate, which is cool. But if you want to totally switch it up, orange zest is really nice in a chocolate chip cookie. Lime zest would be interesting. I would say do lime zest and white chocolate. It'd be pretty cool. It's like a key lime pie. But yeah, I would say rosemary is my favorite when it comes to chocolate, and then orange is like a close second. And again, totally leave it out if you don't like it. And you can up the vanilla and make it like a super, super rich and decadent vanilla chocolate chip cookie. Let's see. I just saw a question pop in and read it. Okay, so someone made their cookies ahead of time and they spread out and did not like stay as a form. And I was gonna talk about that in a minute, but I'll bring it up now. So also our mixture is now ready for the flour. So I'm gonna throw the flour in. The flour, I'm just gonna mix until it's just incorporated. You don't wanna over mix your flour. And the vanilla can go in now as well. But to answer the question about the spreading of cookies. So my next step after this flour is mixed and incorporated, I'm going to chill my cookies. And this is honestly the most important part. Even if your butter is not room temperature, you can make up for it in the chilling process after. But you have to be patient. And in order to get a cookie to stay in its form as like a complete circle, you have to chill it. So what we're gonna actually do is scoop it out onto our sheet trays, chill them for a minimum of 30 minutes, and then pop them in the oven. If you pop them in the oven while they are still, while they are not chilled, what's gonna happen is that butter is going to seep out as you bake them. So let's see. So she's saying she chilled it for 45 minutes. So I'm gonna be honest with you. Doesn't make sense to me. What temperature was your oven? Can you write it as you go? So that's 350. I don't know. Okay, so that's a very bizarre situation because I cooked them before class 2 and they did not spread out on me. So I would say, did you start with room temperature butter or melted butter? This is also so weird to answer questions like, and do this, and I'm not talking to anyone, I'm by myself. All right. Okay, so convection will cause it to cook at a higher temperature. So if I was baking these on convection, I would have done it at 325. So that could have melted your butter more quickly and caused your cookies to spread. Convection is totally fine to bake with, and it's honestly preferred because you get a more even bake, but not all ovens have it. I would just always reduce my temperature 25 to 50 degrees in order to get that right. Okay, next, chocolate chips. I like chocolate chunks, but it's totally preference. And I'm using dark chocolate because I think it pairs the best with the rosemary. I love dark chocolate, but if you don't, you can use a milk chocolate. You can also use like a semi-sweet is probably preferred for cookies. All right, cool. Okay, so like we were saying, you can also try the batter. I know you're not supposed to eat raw eggs, but I won't judge. So I'm gonna take an ice cream scoop, and I'm using a 2-ounce scoop. Use whatever you got. If you have 2 spoons, use 2 spoons, no big deal. And I'm gonna scoop them out. I like to use an ice cream scoop so they're even. So we're gonna scoop them out here, and we're gonna chill them. Oh my gosh, I don't think there's like much better than a chocolate chip cookie, honestly. All right, any more questions for me?
Emily, how'd you get into cooking?
So I have always loved it. When I was a kid, I just would like only watch Food Network, honestly. And my mom, who's on this tonight, but she would clean up after every time I would bake every single night. And that was kind of it for me. I knew I wanted to cook, but I just didn't know what it looked like. So after college, I ended up going to New York for culinary school. So I've always loved it. It's definitely evolved over time. When I started, I wanted to be a pastry chef. And now I'm like a vegan Whole Foods chef. So it can take you anywhere. All right, so we're gonna pop these in the fridge. Another tip is if you want to like only cook a few because you're like me and have zero self-control around cookies, you can freeze like half or whatever you want and bake the rest. So these are totally great for make ahead if you have like a dinner party or whatever it may be. Go ahead, make the batter, freeze them. It's good for like 3 to 5 months, and then pull them out whenever you want. And I like to freeze them in balls. That way they're like honestly like ready to go. So I'm gonna throw this in the fridge. I'll be right back. All right. So now we're gonna make the star of the show, butternut gnocchi. And this is the most like in-depth part. So if you guys have questions as you're going, again, like there might be, so don't be shy. Better to ask questions while I'm here. So I'm gonna pull all my mise en place through my pasta out. And I'm gonna get everything situated. So we have here, I have my 2 1/4 cups of the squash that have been strained and cooled. And to that, I'm gonna add my eggs. So I have 2 eggs here. Again, I'm gonna go ahead and do it on a flat surface, right inside. And then some salt. And honestly, this recipe calls for, I think, like 2 teaspoons of salt. Feel free to do an extra pinch or so to taste. There's really not a lot going on in this besides the squash and the cheese. So the more salt will just bring out those flavors. And then we have our grated Parmesan. And we're just gonna mix this all together. So I chose gnocchi because last year for like the Chicago alumni group, we made pasta in one of the cooking classes I teach in Chicago. And it was so fun, but I feel like halfway through the class, everyone was like, oh my gosh, Emily, I'm never making homemade pasta. This is so hard, like so much work, which it's not. It's just like very time consuming. So the gnocchi is like my opinion of like homemade pasta, but a little bit of like the quick and fast way. But it's honestly so delicious. Oh, and you can do this recipe with cauliflower. I know all you guys are buying cauliflower gnocchi, like frozen. You can 100% swap out the squash for the cauliflower, but do not skip the straining step. It is so important. And then we're gonna add in our flour, and I'm gonna do about a cup at a time. And what I'm looking for here is for it to form a ball and not to stick to the sides, but I don't want to over flour it. I might not use the whole bit of flour that I asked for in the recipe, because if you put too much flour, it creates a very dense gnocchi. So we want it to be nice and fluffy. I did get a question earlier too about if you don't want to use a brown butter sauce or you don't want to use sage, what can you use? First off, with the sage, you can totally leave it out if you don't like sage. You can also use rosemary, thyme. Really, any herb is going to be delicious in a brown butter sauce. I mean, it's brown butter. Can't really go wrong. And like brown butter and squash are just, is like a marriage made in heaven. Made in, I don't know what that is. But anyway, but you can pair that together. And then the other option, I would not do like a marinara sauce for this because it's going to overpower the butternut and you're not going to like make that the star. What you want to do is maybe pair it with like a cream sauce, like an Alfredo, or even just like a plain melted Parmesan with some cream, and really just make it like very velvety. But I would not do any like tomato or acidic sauce. You want the fat to pair with the squash. All right, if you're doing this with me, how is the gnocchi coming? I know all of our hands are probably like full of flour, so no stress if you don't want to ask. Okay, so mine, I'm now using my hands because my spoon is just no longer helpful. So I am going to slightly get this together. And as you can see, it's really sticking to my hands. So that means there's not enough flour yet. You want to be able to roll it around and not have anything stick to your palm or stick to your fingers. And that's when you know you've incorporated enough flour. A little behind. Okay, I feel you. Keep going. What else is good? And yeah.
Did you blend the butternut squash before you strained it?
So I did not personally because I used plug for my oven. I use the Tabala, which makes it super like velvety and steams it. But if you're using a normal oven, it might still be too chunky and too dry, and you would need to puree it. But it honestly depends. I'll show you what mine looks like coming out of the oven. It's like it's very spoonable, and in that case, I do not need to blend it.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. And Stephanie went to my pasta class last year, which was so fun.
Yes, we have 2 repeat learners.
Stephanie
All right.
is also our Chicago Torero Club president, for anyone who didn't know. Yay, Stephanie.
Also, if you guys are not in Chicago and you still want to cook with me, I can 100% do virtual classes, or even like help you guys with meal plans or whatever you got going on, even if you're far away. can make it work now that our whole world is virtual. Okay, so my dough is no longer sticky to the touch. And so I just dusted lightly my working surface, and I'm going to knead it together a little bit further. And how I'm kneading is I'm taking the top of my dough here, folding it over, and then flipping the whole thing over together. So it's kind of like a flip, tuck, and turn. I know it's easier said than done. And if it's still sticking on you, just keep adding a little bit more flour. And we just want this to come together. Also, it's so crazy. There's some people on here who I literally haven't seen from college. Like Keenan and Billy, hello. And Rachel and Curbs, who I know she was making like an apple cider cocktail before this. So I hope you guys all have a drink in hand because I will be after this, currently messy. All right, so we have our dough. I'm gonna let this chill for a quick second while I clean up. And as you can see, I did not use all my flour. I still have about a cup left. And I might need to do it as I'm rolling out. I might need to use it, but as of now, we're good. So I'm gonna clean up a little bit. And then we're gonna roll out the gnocchi. So I'm gonna take our dough. Oh, thank you, Kirby. Yeah, so if you want the recipe that Kirby's making for her cocktail, it is on my Instagram, which is @thefreshslice. And I post recipes there for you guys to check out. So feel free to go make that cocktail she said. Kirby, is it good?
Yeah, it's awesome. It's so good. You said it was for 2 people. I think it's about for 1 person.
Yeah, I was being generous. All right, so I took half of my dough just so that it's a little easier to work with. And I'm gonna cut this into 4s. So I'm gonna cut it into half and then half again, which I always recommend. I feel like in my classes, I always get people who are like, what's a 3rd? What's a 4th? And it's like, just do what you know, cut it in half and then move from there. Makes your life way easier. And sticking a little. And then I'm gonna roll out just some of these guys with you in the sake of time. We're going to make like snakes, like back to when we were kids playing with Play-Doh. You're gonna make a nice snake. We want it to be 1/4 of an inch thick. No questions. You guys are killing it, or you're really focused on what you're doing. Okay, so we're about about 1/2 inch thick, and I'm going to go ahead and make 1/2 inch cuts. I'm using a spatula. You can use a knife or a bench scraper, which I wish I had. But we just want them to be like nice 1/2 inch pieces. And honestly, whatever size you make them is totally fine, as long as they're all the same size. So if you want massive gnocchi, I won't judge you for that. But try to make them all the same size. That way they all cook together and you don't have like some that are finished and some that are still going. That's kind of the rule of thumb with cooking in general. and like the only important reason for knife skills is that everything is the same size. So if a recipe says cut everything like 1/2 inch thick, if you cut everything 1 inch thick, I mean, it's gonna look different than the recipe, which is like, you do you. But as long as they cook at the same time, that's all the recipe is telling you. You can kind of make it your own. The other thing I'll show you guys too on this next round. So this first group of gnocchi, I honestly just cut them, did not shape them. And they look like little nuggets. They actually look like the frozen gnocchi you would buy because they are not shaping them either. But if you want to go a little fancy, a little bit more traditional, we can roll them on the back of a fork. They also make these very cute gnocchi, they're like little boards, like little washboards, and you roll your gnocchi on them, and that's the classic way of making them, and they come out perfect every time. But we're gonna do the fork method today because I also don't have a cool gnocchi shaper. All right, so we have our little 1/2 inch gnocchis, and I'm gonna take them and roll it on the back of this fork just to get a nice little indentation. It's gonna feel weird. You just really wanna take your thumb and press it, but not too hard because it will break apart. So there's like a little bit of pressure, but nothing too crazy. Roll it right down that fork and you'll get a nice like little indentation. That is with like classic gnocchi. But this step for me, I always call myself like the lazy chef. I do not usually do things that take me extra time and do not change the flavor of what I'm doing. So this step for me is like, oof, cannot sit here and do this with a pound of dough. But it is cute. Can you use a grater to? No. So a grater will like just shred your dough. It's not gentle enough. So a grater is actually like super sharp, where the back of a fork is like obviously very dull and just metal. So I would not use a grater for this, or else you'll have like spatzel, which is a different kind of pasta. Spatzel's actually ironically made very similarly, except for you grate the pasta, the same dough over a boiling pot of water. So you're ahead of the game if that's what you're doing. All right, I'm gonna go back to my no rolling chop method because I don't know about you, but it's kind of like drives me crazy. All right, is everyone's dough going okay? Are we alive? Are we here? I got a few thumbs up.
My mother, everyone, I'm here with my mom, and we are drastically behind, so we're trying to catch up, but that's okay. Because we're first time, chefs here, we're just learning. So if anyone's in the same boat, you're not alone.
There's never a wrong way to do it. Also, I should have mentioned, I have my pot of water running as well. That way it's nice and hot by the time we are done here. I'm gonna grab a lid so it actually boils. So also, if you want to make this recipe ahead, same with the cookies. So what I would do is you can do two things. You can either freeze them as is, totally raw, not boiled. And then when you're ready to eat them, you can take them from the freezer and boil them and do like the rest of the steps of this recipe. It's a great option if you want to like make a big batch of this and then have your own frozen gnocchi ready to go. You don't have to go to Trader Joe's anymore. Because honest, I haven't been to Trader Joe's since quarantine, so lines are too long. But so you can do that. You can also go ahead and boil these and then freeze them. So 2 ways to make ahead. I think texturally, if you freeze them before you boil them, you'll get a better texture when you remake it, but not a huge difference. And then I am putting it on a sheet tray with parchment paper. If you guys have semolina at home, which is like a coarser grind flour, that way it kind of rolls off like rollerblades, you can use that. Otherwise, I would use parchment or a little bit of all-purpose flour to dust your sheet tray. All right, and I am sticking a little bit, so I'm gonna grab some flour. And chop. So since quarantine, the 2 places I teach cooking classes have been shut down for the past few months. So it's so nice to like actually be teaching a class to people. But to tell you, it could not feel weirder to not have you guys like in front of me. So I appreciate you bearing with me. So is it better to raise your hand higher when sprinkling flour? Yes. I feel like you are on top of your game tonight, making things ahead and knowing what to say. So when my chef in culinary school used to like always say that it drives crazy, but a higher height, salt to the sky, flour to the sky, you get an even distribution. So same with salt. If I'm like salting a piece of meat, or if I'm doing like vegetables, if you go from a higher height, you're gonna get more distribution, which is gonna improve the salting of your actual product. So always salt from a high height. That like Salt Bay guy, he was actually doing it correctly, even though he looks insane. But yeah, that is what you're supposed to do. And then also to flour from a height as well. All right. So I have a ton of little gnocchis over here. And I'm waiting on my my water. So I'm waiting on my water. I'm gonna go ahead and start that brown butter sauce. And this could not be an easier sauce. And like I said, it goes perfectly with squash. I mean, I'm sure you guys have had in restaurants or seen on menus, like pumpkin ravioli with the brown butter sauce. This is that same concept. It's just like very nutty and almost sweet, and matches with the like squash. It's just the best. So we're gonna get started. My pan is cold. I'm gonna put it on low, and then I have my butter. I went ahead and diced my butter first because I want it to all melt evenly. If you didn't, not a big deal, but it will help the melting of your butter be a little bit more even and a little better reaction. I had to quick change out my pans. They were, there was a little something on it from the office. So now we have a clean pan. And brown butter, all you're really doing is caramelizing the milk solids inside of that butter. So that's why it's called brown butter. You're browning the milk. If there wasn't milk inside of it, like if you're using ghee, because I know a lot of people love to cook with ghee these days. If you're using ghee, it's not going to brown the same because there's no actual milk solids in it in order to turn it brown. So only use regular butter if you're doing this. It also doesn't work with coconut oil or anything. So we're going to stick to regular butter. We're going to brown it. It's melting over here. And I'm going to put it on medium heat. Goes a little faster. What's going to happen is that it's going to start to bubble on you. And don't freak out. Brown butter is tricky, but also not. So it can burn on you 100%. So keep it on like a medium heat. But it will bubble on you, and that's a good thing. That means things are cooking, things are working. So we're going to leave it on medium heat, make sure it's all melting, and then we are going to cook those milk fats. And when it starts to bubble, that's when we're going to add our sage and our garlic and our salt in order to you're essentially frying the sage into the sauce, and it's going to be delicious. But that is what's going to bring the flavor out. It's infusing into that brown butter. And if you don't want to serve it with like big pieces of sage, you just want the flavor of it, you can totally like take out the sage pieces and leave them off and still have that flavor. But I'd say serve it with it because fried sage is delicious. All right. So we're not bubbling yet. And then I also am going to throw walnuts into mine. You don't have to. I think it plays really nicely. There's also going to be walnuts in our salad. So I'm going to throw walnuts in, and they will get nice and toasted as well with that. Cool. And then in my recipe, I wrote to smash the garlic. And all I mean for that is literally take my garlic clove and smash my knife right on top of it. What this is going to do is break down the cell walls of those garlic cloves so that all the juices and aromas can kind of mix into that butter and it really infuses. If you just throw a whole garlic clove in there, it's just going to take longer to infuse and not really get the flavor you're looking for. So I'd say 2 to 4. I'm a huge garlic person, so I'm going to do 3, but 2 is good. All right. Do we have everyone's good? No questions? We all have our brown butter going and our gnocchis coming along. Honestly, I really thought a lot of you guys would not be taking this class with me. So seeing all you guys like actually cooking is pretty fun. So I'm no longer really teaching classes since it shut down, like I mentioned. So I'm always in this kitchen working for Tavala, which is such an awesome company. And it's really cool. It's a meal delivery company, so we can give you food nationwide. Like a quick plug, but it's like a countertop oven that does the cooking for you. So kind of against the theme of tonight of actually cooking everything start to finish. But if you want the meals I make, if you want them in your house, you can totally do that, which I think is such a fun concept. I guess I'm trying to think of things to say because no one has any questions. But if you guys are drinking with this meal tonight, which all 4, everyone should have a glass of something, even if it's water, with this dish. But it pairs so nicely with like a Pinot Grigio, or if you're not into, really pairs the best with whites, honestly. But if you are more into reds, I would say it's like a light bodied red. So I'd do like a Pinot Noir, something like that to make it like really nice. You don't want to overpower the brown butter and the butternut squash. if you're gonna go spirits, because who doesn't want a good cocktail on a Sunday night? I would say, honestly, a tequila drink would be great with this. Kirby's ahead of the game with the apple cider slushy, which is also really good for this because apple cider is gonna play with our salad. But yeah, I would say to like clear spirits and white wine as my number one choices, and then move into like a light-bodied red if that's what you're doing. And my sister, who is doing this class with me, she is trying to call out that I have a little mini ebook that is like it's like a recipe book of like 8 recipes, all about getting more greens into your day. You guys can find that on my Instagram as well, in my blog. It's just thefreshslice.com or @thefreshslice. But they're really simple recipes, all about getting like as many cups of greens into your day as possible. Just like a healthy gut, better skin, and all the good things that come with eating greens. Okay, so our butter is starting to pop and bubble, which is what we want. And I'm gonna let it come. I want it to be like, not a boil, but I want it to be like a roaring bubble. You wanna hear some like snap, crackle, and pops in there. And I always think like a lot of things I've learned like cooking in restaurants and going to culinary school is that you cook with 2 things. You cook with your hands, or 3 things, I guess. You cook with your hands, your eyes, and your ears. If you can hear what's happening, that is so important, and also like really important when you're working in a restaurant. You can hear like who's almost done and what's going on. But when you're at home doing it alone, hearing those bubbles is like totally an indication that like, you need to be watching what's going on. You can be smelling what's in the oven. All your senses should be going when you're cooking. And then your hands obviously are doing the work. But, all right. I'm waiting for that to bubble on me. And I am going to move my cutting board over and have a side section for my salad. That way we can roll into that recipe when we are ready. All right, my water is boiling. Okay, so we are going to cook our gnocchi. And if you guys are steps behind, if you're still rolling it out, no stress. I'm gonna show you what to do. You guys can then do it on your own time. But it could not be easier, and it happens in like a matter of 2 minutes, which is why gnocchi is like my favorite pasta to make. Any fresh pasta only takes about like 2 minutes to cook, but this is super fast. So we have boiling water. I heavily salted my water. I want it to taste like the sea. And that is because there's really nothing going on in this gnocchi except for the Parmesan, the butternut squash, and a little bit of salt. So I want the water to bring flavor and life to these little pillows. So I'm going to salt my water super heavily. Honestly, taste it. And if it tastes terrible, then like you probably did it right. But taste it, and I promise you your pastas will taste different. We're gonna throw this in, and I'm gonna do about like half of my sheet tray at once. And I'm gonna use a spoon so I don't splash everywhere. And if you used flour on your sheet tray at all, in order for it not to stick to your sheet tray, make sure to dust that off before you put it into the water. What will happen if you have flour in your water? It'll be honestly fine, but it will cloud up your water fast, and you'll have to switch it out because there'll be too much starch happening. So keep your water clean, dust off your gnocchi. And I'm gonna give that like a quick stir as I dunk those in there. And what's gonna happen is they're just gonna start popping to the top like little popcorns. And my butter is melting and bubbling away. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw in my aromatics. So I have my garlic, And the thing about this recipe that makes like a little tricky is it all kind of happens at once. So definitely watch what's going on, be aware. And like I said, like use all your senses in order to know what's happening with your dishes. That way we can catch it as it happens. So we're gonna pop those in there. That's gonna fry away. Gnocchi also tends to stick a little bit to the bottom of your pot, so make sure you stir it once or twice to pick those up, and they're gonna pop right to the top. And I'm gonna use a slotted spoon to pull them out. All right. This smells incredible. I mean, I don't know what smells better than butter, but oh man, you guys, this is gonna be such a good dinner. Okay, so this is still going, still bubbling away. I'm gonna put in the rest of my gnocchi. Also, don't do what I just did and pour all your gnocchi in off the sheet tray. You will burn yourself, so just a fair warning. I burn myself often, so I'm used to it. But I'm gonna put a little bit of olive oil on top of my cooked gnocchi so they don't stick together. So I'm gonna grab that. And also I have like a squeeze bottle of olive oil. And this is the best. This and like a salt cup are the two most important things in anyone's kitchen. You need to salt everything you do all the time, so you need easy access. It's kind of the difference between restaurant cooking and professional cooking and home cooking is that professional salt their food. Home cooks are a little afraid of salt. So don't be afraid. And then the next thing is a little squeeze bottle. You get them on Amazon and they change your life. That way you always have oil handy, ready to go, and it's just so much better. I also put like vinegars in a squeeze bottle. Any sauce that I squeeze, it's in a bottle. Makes it so much faster. Okay, so let's see, I don't know if this helps you guys at all, but I'm going to show you how bubbly my butter is. So it's really caramelizing. I can really smell that sage. And I'm gonna shake it a little bit just to make sure whatever's on the bottom doesn't get too burnt. So I'm gonna give it a little shake. And you can see, if you like push over the bubbles in the foam, you can totally see that it's starting to brown and caramelize and just get nice and nutty and sweet on you. And I'm gonna turn my heat down just a little bit so it doesn't burn too fast as I pull the rest of my gnocchi out. You know, when you're like fishing for pasta and it will not go on your spoon, my least favorite thing. Okay, so we have our gnocchis ready to go. Again, the olive oil just helps them not to stick. So if I'm gonna do pasta ahead of time, it makes it way easier. Do that, put it on a sheet tray so it doesn't stick on you. And I think that's something people don't really talk about is like you're serving pasta for like a holiday or something like that, you can make it ahead of time and serve it in a skillet before. So what I would do is cook all my pasta first, put it on a sheet tray to let it cool with some olive oil, drizzle it all out. And then when it's dinner time or I'm ready to serve it, I then just mix it with my sauce as I'm serving. That way it's nice and fresh. That's how restaurants do it. And you can totally do it as a home cook. It's just makes life easier. I know I showed my mom that once and her mind was like, oh my God, you can cook salt, like you can cook pasta before people get there. Like it's crazy. So it's definitely a good tip. All right.
So Emily, to clarify what you just said, so you cook the pasta before and then you make the sauce whenever you need to, like you're preparing to eat it. So then the sauce itself is what heats up the pasta then. So then you're not like reheating the pasta in like the oven or like the microwave.
Correct. So you're just, all you would do is take your cooked pasta and put it in a saute pan with your sauce. And if you're gonna make this hours ahead of time and like put it in the fridge, you can do that too, surprisingly. But if you're gonna do that, I would heat up the pasta a little bit in the saucepan for a longer time. Otherwise, you can take like your mildly warm pasta, mix it with your sauce, and serve it whenever you're ready. Does that make sense? Okay, so our sauce is going. I'm gonna quickly switch gears. You guys can still focus on your sauce, but I'm gonna quickly show you. Also, this is like close to being done. I can like really smell it. I'm actually gonna pull the garlic out of there just because I don't want the cloves of garlic. I just wanted the infusion of them. So I'm gonna pull them out of my butter. They're like nice and fried a little bit, as you can see. If you wanted to use this as a garnish and chop them up, you can totally do that. Fried garlic is phenomenal. So I'm gonna let this keep going and stay nice and warm for us until we're ready to add in that gnocchi. And next, we're gonna switch gears and go to the salad. Am I going to like freak anyone out if I move to the salad right now? All right. I didn't get any yelling, so we're good. Okay, so I have my big bowl of arugula, and I'm just gonna set this aside. This is the easiest salad you'll ever do. And it's just like a very simple, classic flavors put together, drizzled with an apple cider vinaigrette that's gonna make it very fall and like really sweet and tangy. So arugula, what you're gonna do, and you're gonna salt it. And I swear to you, this is the difference between a home salad and a restaurant salad. So salad actually means like, comes from the word salt, salat. So salt your salad, salt your lettuce, gonna make a world of difference. Salt your vinaigrettes. Everything should have a little bit of salt. Salt just brings out flavor. So I'm gonna take my apple and I'm gonna cut the fleshy sides of my apple off. So I usually cut it in like fours. So I have 4 slices down. And there we go. Smelling this. And once you add like your nuts and everything, your butter should foam up again. So don't freak out. And it's starting to look like nice and light brown and caramely. Oh my gosh, you guys. If you're actually making this, you're gonna be in for a treat. Okay. Also, we're really good on time, which I'm really impressed by. Okay, so no more questions. That's going. Slicing up these apples. Toss that. I'm gonna create little, like 1/4 of an inch half moons here, and just slice down my apple. If that was like in fast motion for you, I'll break it down. First off, how you hold a knife is I'm gonna pinch the base of my knife here, and I'm going to wrap my 3 fingers around the handle. So I get a lot of people in my classes who like to put their finger right on top, like it's a little finger rest. It's not. And I also get a lot of people who hold their knife at the base of their knife. And you honestly might as well be throwing your knife in the air. Like you have 0 control when you're holding a knife like this. So I like to pinch and then wrap my 3 fingers around. This is gonna give you control, and it's gonna feel weird, but it's essentially like choking up on like a baseball bat or a tennis racket. Like you're holding it at the base, like where the lever is, and giving yourself the most control. And I'm gonna cut right down on my apple. And I'm keeping the tip of my knife on the board as much as possible, and that chef claw that I talked about earlier to keep everything nice and tight. Also, this is how chefs are able to not watch while they're cooking. And you're like, wait, how are you cutting that so fast? Like, because I know where my hands are at all times. So we have our apples sliced up, and I'm gonna grab this little bowl. And you can use one or two. The recipe only says one, but do whatever you like. You can also use any apple you like. I really love Honeycrisp apples. I just think they're so fresh and perfect. All right, butter is off the heat. I am done with that. I'm gonna come back to it in a minute. So Honeycrisp apples, my fave, but do whatever you want. I have a little bit of lemon juice just so those don't turn brown on us. And I'm gonna toss them. And then we are going to make our dressing. So I have everything laid out. I'll slow down just so that everyone can like regroup. Also, my kitchen is like a mess right now. Like it looks clean in this window, but everywhere else is a disaster. So if your kitchen is also a disaster, no stress. It'll be cleaned up in a minute. All right, focus on the dressing. So I'm gonna show you guys how to make a quick dressing. And dressings are one of those things that make and break a salad, but also making them your own is so simple and easy, and no one ever does it. And instead we go to the grocery store and we buy things that have like gums and fillers and sugars in them that we don't need. So make it yourself. It honestly takes 2 seconds. You can shake it in a mason jar. You can whisk it like we're gonna do today, and it's gonna change your life. So all you need is an emulsifier. Today we're using Dijon mustard. If you wanted to use like an almond butter or any any thick paste is really an emulsifier, even like comfy garlic or which you probably don't have home, but also like any sesame paste or anything like that is gonna be a nice emulsification. And you can play with your dressing that way. And then a little bit of a sweetener to taste. Today I did honey because it pairs really nicely with goat cheese and apples and everything that we're eating today. But if you wanted to use maple syrup or even like a coconut sugar or no sugar at all, go for it. It's totally your choice. And then the next thing we're going to add is our apple cider and our apple cider vinegar. A few things. You do not need the apple cider. I did that because I think it's like yummy and festive. If you wanted just do vinegar, you can. You're gonna get a bitier dressing. Another option, if you wanted, like I actually make this dressing like every week, is red wine vinegar with mustard and a little honey, and it's divine. It's so good on vegetables. It's good on meat. Actually, it's just great. Okay, so I'm gonna whisk this. And as this is coming together, we're all mixed up, I'm gonna drizzle in my oil. This is the only annoying and like tedious part of a vinaigrette is we're gonna drizzle slowly and like slower than you wanna drizzle. Like you're like, Emily, put this oil in there. Like, no, just keep going. You want it to be fully mixed in and emulsified, or else you're gonna get like a separated dressing and you're never gonna wanna make it on your own again. So we're just gonna nicely whisk this up. And what you're looking for is everything to come together almost into like a creamy dressing. And what's causing that to happen is the oil and the mustard coming together and creating, kind of like becoming one, to create a nice emulsified solution. So we're looking for super, I don't know if you guys can see, but like really creamy. And how you'll know if you're using too much oil is the oil will start to separate out. So just stop. If you have oil separating out, I would go ahead and add like a splash of water, and then the rest you can just add more oil as you go. And like I said, we season our dressings and we taste everything that's happening. Because if you don't taste, we'll have no idea what your food's gonna look like. Okay. Still no questions. You guys are like rock stars. Usually when I teach a class, you're like, Emily, what are you doing? Okay. So I have arugula. I have apple slices, and we're gonna build the salad. So I'm gonna throw in my apples. And I'm gonna throw in my toasted walnuts, which I did ahead of time. If you don't wanna toast them, you don't wanna cook walnuts. Sunflower seeds would actually be like a really good alternative, or pumpkin seeds. Just some sort of like nut, I think pairs well with the apple cider. And I'm gonna grab tongs really quickly. Kirby says she's doing pumpkin seeds. Good job, Kirby. Pumpkin seeds are great. I actually made the other day, I made a pumpkin seed butter the other day. That was pretty fun. I will definitely make that again. I just don't always have the patience, but pumpkin seeds are great. So we're gonna dress the salad, and I'm using tongs to make it easier. If you wanna use your hands, honestly, go for it. So I'm gonna drizzle in my salad dressing, and I'm only gonna do about 1/3 to 1/2 of that dressing. You don't wanna overdress, especially if you're not serving right away. Lucky for us, we are. So I'm gonna just toss it all together. And I like, again, like using my senses to cook. I really like to see a shiny salad. So I don't want the dressing to like wilt my greens and bring everything like down and sad. I really want it to be just glossy and kind of like kissed with salad dressing. So show you what that looks like there. I know like my mom and sister are huge dressing people, so they're probably gonna pour all this dressing onto it, which is like totally fine, but they can lie to me now and say they just kissed it. All right, that's good. I'm gonna do a little tiny bit salt. And when I'm adding salt to a salad, it's small pinches. When I'm adding salt to like vegetables and things, it's a little bit of a heavier pinch. But you're not looking for it to taste salty. You're just looking for it to enhance the flavor of everything. Also, if you do not like arugula, I know it can be kind of like a polarizing green for people. If you do not want to, 100% spinach is perfect. Mixed greens. I like a leafier green with the salad because you have the crunch coming from like your seeds and your apples. So I would stick to something leafier, but if you're like, all I'm gonna eat is arugula, then, romaine, then go for romaine. I won't judge, it's gonna taste great. Another thing about salads, I'm like I mentioned earlier, I am actually like primarily like a vegan and like vegetarian chef. And so salads are something I do all the time and I love them. But so many people are scared of salads because they're like, it's boring. I don't want to eat greens. I don't want to eat all this lettuce. And salads are not just that. Like you have to have a few components of a salad that are going to make it great. You need something salty. You need something crunchy. You need something maybe a little sweet, depending on your taste. But like even dried cranberries or like raisins, you really want to touch all of those points of flavor. And then your umami is going to be coming from the Dijon in your dressing and a little bit of that fat from the oil so that it all comes together. Because like I hate a boring salad. I feel like we often make boring salads by like dousing lettuce in balsamic vinegar. And it's just like not giving you enough life in your salad. So think about the components you're putting into it. Take a second to be like, all right, I want something crunchy. I want something bright. I really want that acidic. The lemon that's going on our apple was doing more than just preventing it from turning brown. It's also like bringing a nice acidity to the salad as a whole. So no more boring salads, only good ones. Okay, that's my salad spiel. So then we'll do our gnocchi, which is, I'm gonna taste for salt because I need to know if I need to add salt to the actual mix when I'm mixing it all together. My salt's pretty good. So I'm gonna take, I have this brown butter sage situation. Let me find a clean thing. So as you can see, I wish you guys could smell this, but I'm sure you're smelling it at home. It smells unreal, like super nutty. Mine is super dark. I'll actually pour a little bit out into the glass so that you can see what color you're kind of going for. You see how it's like nice and like dark brown, really nice and nutty and caramely? That's what we're looking for. And it smells like Christmas. So we have like our hot butter, our nuts, and our sage in here. And my sage is like nice and crispy. This is where you can pull out your sage if you don't want to serve with the sage. Everything is in one pot, good to go. I'm going to add my gnocchi right to it. I'll do it here. So we have all of our gnocchi that we cooked, and I'm gonna toss this right into my pan. So if I made pasta ahead of time, this is the step that you would do to serve. So I would have my like nice warm or like maybe slightly chilled pasta and add it to my saute pan. And I'm gonna get this out of the way. So we're gonna let this all come together. It's all in that pan, like doing its thing, making itself super yummy, and working out. If you have like my other suggestion, I guess I only did half of my dough in here. If you want to do the whole recipe and you only have one pan, I would go ahead and do it in batches. So I would do my gnocchi with the brown butter sauce in one batch, and then I would do a second batch of it, if that makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, let me know. Okay, so adding salt, but you have salt restrictions. I hear this all the time. Depending on how severe your salt restriction is, it can make and break things. But if you are someone who is either you're diabetic or there's something like that, you need to like reduce or eliminate the salt in your diet, the easiest way to do it is adding acid. So what I would do, you kind of need a little bit of salt in anything, like a pinch. But if you can't do more than a pinch, I would say add acid and add a ton of herbs, add a ton of spices to really bring out the flavor of what you're cooking without adding salt. Unfortunately, without salt, a lot of your dishes are going to be flat. So what you're looking for when you're adding acid or even adding a sweetener, what you're looking for is that it brings it out of that flat and into like a new level of like taste. Usually people who are restricted on salt are also restricted on sugar. So that's why I would say stick to an acid and like add a lot more lemon juice to your salad, add a lot more, what would be an acid in our pasta would be, I would add lemon juice to the sauce as well. You can finish it with lemon juice instead of finishing it with salt. I also cook with lemons all the time. I like doing lemon zest over pretty much everything. Just take a zester right on top, and it just like, I kid you not, some of it's like the flavor, some of it's the smell, but it just takes over everything and really makes your dish so much better. I'll actually do that to my salads. I think it'll taste really nice. Okay. Never mind, I don't have a microplane or else I would do that to my salad. But all you would do is literally take your microplane or your zester and zest it right over the top. And it's just gonna like, the oils from the zest will just elevate the entire salad. It's gonna be great. Okay, so our pasta is looking phenomenal. Another thought I had too, so traditionally gnocchi, if you didn't know, is made with white potatoes. So you would swap out the butternut squash for potatoes and it's the same. The cauliflower, like I mentioned, but you can really use any root vegetable. So I've actually made it before with beets and it's so beautiful because it's like that bright reddish purple color. And all you would do, you would still cook your beets the same. You would puree them. You would have to puree them through a food processor or a blender, and then you would strain it out, and you just have like this beautiful purple pulp. Add that in with your flour. Oh my gosh, so good. All right. Our pasta is looking great. And I'm using a spoon to toss it. Use tongs. You can also like do your little chef flip if you guys got it. My pot is a little small for that, unless we want brown butter all over my kitchen. But it's looking so beautiful. I'm gonna grab a plate and plate this up for us. And oh my gosh, the cookies, you guys, I forgot about the cookies. Never mind, I'm not grabbing the plate. I'm grabbing those cookies out of the fridge. I knew I was missing something, so I was like looking at the time, I'm like, wow, I still have 15 minutes left. Like, what could I do? So good thing I remembered. We have those cookies that we were chilling. And what I'm gonna do, I have my oven still on 350. I've had it on this whole time. And I'm going to just take, I want to give my cookies enough space. I actually made these quite large today. So I'm going to situate them so that I only like to do about like, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8 on a tray. You can do 12 on a tray. I feel like most people do that. I'm very anxious when they all go together. So I like to have them nicely, like 2 to 3 inches minimum apart is ideal for me. So 8 on a tray. Also, this recipe only made like a half dozen, so we should be good. So 8 on a tray, right in the oven. And those are gonna go in there from the fridge to the oven, no waiting outside. We don't want it to soften. And those are gonna cook for 10 minutes, 12 minutes. I like to pull them a little earlier. So I usually pull them at 10 and then let them cool at room temperature until they're sturdy enough to pick up. If you do not wait because you're impatient, totally fine. But what's gonna happen is it's gonna fall apart on you and you're like, what happened to this recipe? It's not the recipe. You just need to be a little bit more patient. So those are in the oven. Thank God I remembered that. And we have 10 minutes left in class, so it's perfect. So I'm gonna plate up the rest of our stuff and clean up so I don't go crazy. And then I saw a few questions. Let me answer questions. What's my favorite kitchen tool? Good question. I have a few. So one is tongs. I don't think, like growing up, we never had tongs in the house, and that's something like when I finally got my own kitchen, I was like, whoa, tongs are a game changer. I use these for vegetables, toss my salads, grabbing protein out of the oven, really everything you can use tongs. And the other thing is my sister's trying to like laugh on here. So the next thing I absolutely love is a cast iron skillet. I know a lot of people shy away from them because they're afraid of using or like cleaning them properly, but they really do change the game. They make everything have a lot more flavor. And you honestly, like I said, I'm a lazy chef and I'm also a lazy cleaner. So I hate cleaning. And what's beautiful about a cast iron skillet is that you really don't have to like clean it, which sounds gross, but I promise you it's true. You take salt and you throw salt right on top of whatever you cooked. You rub it into your pan. So that's kind of acting as a scrub. Do not use like a harsh actual scrub on it, just the salt. Scrub that in. That salt's actually going to absorb any oils that you had on your pan. It's also going to get rid of like any crumbs or whatever is still stuck on the bottom of your pan. And then that is all you do. You throw that salt away, you wipe it out, and then you're going to throw oil right on it. and that's gonna re-season your pan. So it's non-stick, adds a ton of flavor, and it's just a game changer in the kitchen. So it's like my 2 right now, I would say. And a good knife. I don't know, I love a lot of things about a kitchen. And what are some fall-inspired meals you'd recommend us checking out? Honestly, everything. I feel like pumpkin spice takes over the game when it comes to fall. Let me grab a plate. I am not a huge pumpkin spice like obsessed person. A lot of people are, so I know I'll get some rap from that. But anything pumpkin spice is very fall. When it comes to like savory and sweet, I think the apple and the pears are like an underplayed fall go-to. I think that they can play very well in savory dishes. They can play very well in sweet dishes. Like a baked apple can go so far. Last night I actually hosted a dinner and we had baked apples and caramel for dessert, and everyone's like, this is insane. And it's like the easiest thing to make, but no one ever thinks about it because you're so focused on pumpkin pie and like all the pumpkin spice breads and everything like that. So definitely aim towards like apple recipes, herbaceous recipes, squash recipes that aren't pumpkin. I'm gonna spread out your fall knowledge a little bit. Okay, a little late for this question. Did you use 1/3 cup of apple cider? So I used 1/3 cup of apple cider for the dressing. The question was, did you use 1/3 cup of cider and 1/3 cup of apple cider vinegar? No, I used 1/3 cup of cider and then 2 tablespoons, sorry, of apple cider vinegar. That's just really gonna elevate it. If you don't have apple cider vinegar, you can just use the cider, but the vinegar is gonna brighten up your dressing a little bit. Another way too with this dressing to get more apple cider from it is to reduce your apple cider. So if you wanna be fancy and you have a few extra minutes, go ahead and put your sauce pot on a stove with apple cider, and it's gonna reduce down. You can do this with wine too if you're cooking wine, but anyway, if you're gonna do it with apple cider, reduce it all the way down, about 50% of the liquid. And that's just gonna really enhance the flavor of it and make your dressing like scream apple cider. This dressing is kind of like a light apple tang, but when you do that, it's very sweet and very rich. It's a nice addition if you're trying to impress people. And if you don't have apple cider at all, not a problem. I would use lemon juice, and I would do only 1/4 cup of lemon juice and like 2 tablespoons of a vinegar if you have it. If not, that's fine. But lemon juice, orange juice, or all vinegar, you can do 1/4 cup of apple cider vinegar as well. Another question. Should I keep leftover gnocchi in the freezer? Anything I should do with it? Yeah, so you can keep, if you've already cooked it start to finish, you can keep your leftover gnocchi in the freezer. You can also, you can remake the sauce and do the whole thing over again and have an awesome dinner. Or like I said earlier, I would mix it with like Alfredo sauce or cream sauce versus like a marinara. And what else would you do with gnocchi? Honestly, anything. You could make like a pasta salad out of gnocchi, which is pretty crazy, but you can do that. Yeah, I would say save it for dinner, save it for lunch. It's a great like lunch if you're going. No one's really going to the office anymore, but if you were, take it to lunch with you, take it to the office because it's good at room temperature as well. And then, do you recommend eating this gnocchi with tomato pasta? I already mentioned that, but it's, I would use an Alfredo or like a cream sauce, not a tomato sauce. Tomatoes just, it's gonna be fine, but what's gonna happen is the acidity from the tomato sauce is not gonna pair with the butternut squash. So you just wanna like, you're basically just saving yourself by adding a little bit more fat to play with the sweetness of the butternut squash versus the acidity. let me know if you guys have any more questions. As we can see, we plated it up. If you want to garnish like with the fried sage, I like to crumble that right on top. And you have like an awesome dinner. I'm gonna grab a fork and try it. Let me know, keep asking questions. I'll answer them while I'm still here. If you have them. If not, I hope that it's delicious. And I'm waiting on my cookies. I actually have a few that already came out of the oven. I tried them before class, and I'm telling you, the rosemary is like a subtle surprise that is the best. So I hope you like them as much as I do, or at least give them a try. What would also be cool, and only because I'm a chocolate lover, they would also be very good, like drizzled with melted chocolate or like half dunked in chocolate if you're trying to like zhuzh up a cookie plate for the holidays. Yeah. Also, I know my sister who's on here is gluten-free and dairy-free. So quick note on that, for the actual gnocchi, you can't change the sauce to be dairy-free, but the gnocchi you can. If you don't want to use the cheese, leave it out and just do flour and add a little bit more salt because the cheese is bringing in salt. So leave that in. But then for the flour part of it, I would use a 1-to-1 baking flour. I think that Cup for Cup has a good one, and also Bob's Red Mill has a great gluten-free blend. You can also, I haven't mastered this, but I have found a lot of recipes online. You can use cassava flour instead of all-purpose flour or instead of a gluten-free flour, and that's gonna make it a little bit better. And it's gonna be gluten-free. Cassava can be gummy, so stay tuned on the recipe on the Fresh Slice for that, because definitely working on it. I've had requests, but for now, you can try it at home. Let me know how it goes. Also, Laura, your speaker's on. Everyone can hear you laugh.
Sorry, I had no idea.
Going to salt. Yeah, salt your lettuce. Salting your lettuce is so important. I hope that it changed your salad experience. I love this salad. I need to save it.
Okay, I'm eating my gnocchi right now, not even in the sauce, and it's so good.
Good.
I'm a chef now.
Right?
We did it.
It's not too gummy or anything?
I don't think so.
All right.
No, I didn't.
Good. I'm so glad. Has anyone else tried it yet? Is everyone still cooking?
I'm gonna call out Kirby. I see her eating something. I don't know if it's the food she just made though.
Me? Were you calling out me?
Yeah, I was calling out you.
Yeah, I just ate a gnocchi. It's very, very good. It doesn't have any sauce on it or anything, but it's delicious.
Good. Hi, Sean. I'm glad it tastes good with no sauce. Honestly, they taste good no matter how you do them. The butter just pushes it to the next level. But yeah, we did this in an hour and a half. So like, yay team, it was great. But if we don't have more questions, I also see someone else eating the salad. I hope it's good.
Emily, if you were to make this with a meat, which I know you wouldn't for yourself, but for someone else, what would you recommend?
So similar to like what I said about the alcohols, like keep it light, like a lighter wine or anything. I would also do the same with meat. So this would really lean towards a chicken. And I would do like a rosemary chicken would be really nice, and kind of pull out from the cookies. That's also another thing when you're creating like a menu for a party or anything like that. I always like to pull flavors from every dish I'm making. So if I'm doing a salad that has like the apple cider, I want that to come through somewhere else, like whether it's the acidity in something. There's walnuts in the salad, so there's walnuts in my pasta. There's rosemary in the cookies, so rosemary cookie would be or rosemary chicken would be perfect. Kind of playing on those flavors makes something a meal, or like in a restaurant, you're thinking of like courses. And by pulling similar flavors, you can easily make courses at home instead of just like, I'm going to throw this with this and see how it goes. Kind of think about how to work it all together and like make something magical for yourself.